Wow, husband. Husband of the year.
Our husband.
Have you ever seen a man who loved his wife so much, he became her living footstool? He carried her burden, washed her innermost clothes at the river in front of the whole village just to keep her smiling. They say love makes a man do crazy things, but in our village, what Uzo did for Adanna was beyond crazy. People called it a spell. Some said his eyes were wiped with bitter leaf. But if you asked Uzo, he would tell you with a smile that a true king treats his woman like a queen, even if it means making himself the dirt she walks on. Look at the market square on a hot Thursday afternoon. Sun is beating down so hard that the ground is almost smoking. Any normal woman would stand under the shade, but not Adanna. When Adanna said her legs were feeling heavy while buying her expensive beads, Uzo didn't tell her to sit on a wooden bench like every other woman. No. Right there in front of the palm oil traders, the yam sellers, and the village elders, Uzo dropped to his hands and knees in the red dust. "Sit on me, my queen," he told her, his voice soft, without an ounce of shame. "Let my back be your chair, so the dirt does not touch your fine wrapper." Adanna didn't even hesitate. She sat her full weight right on his spine, crossing her legs and fanning herself with a woven hand fan, looking around like she was sitting on a throne inside a palace. The whole market stopped. Baskets almost fell off people's heads. Old women covered their mouths in disbelief. "A war?" Mama Chika shouted from her pepper store, dropping her wooden scale. "Ah, wow, husband. See, husband of the year. Is this one a human being or a stool?" Uzo's hands were shaking under the weight. Sweat was dripping straight from his forehead, mixing with the hot dirt under his nose, stinging his eyes. But every time Adanna shifted her body, Uzo only swallowed hard and held his breath, making sure she did not sleep. He looked up at her with so much pure devotion in his eyes, the kind of love that can make a grown man bleed quietly just to keep someone else comfortable. He carried her burden, washed her innermost clothes at the river in front of the whole village. If you thought the market square was the end of it, then you don't know Uzo. Every morning before the first rooster crowed, while other men were sharpening their cutlasses to go to the farm, Uzo was already down at the riverside. Now, in our land, a man does not go near the river where women wash their inner clothes. It is an abomination. It is taboo. But Uzo did not care about taboo. He cared only about Adanna's soft hands. He said the laundry soap was too harsh for her skin, so he took the burden upon himself. There he sat, right in the middle of the village women, swords blowing around his chest, gently scrubbing Adanna's bright pink lace and her innermost wares. He would rinse them carefully in the clear stream water, hold them up to the morning light to check for spots, and blow on his fingers when the cold river water made his knuckles stiff. Adanna's best friend Chidima came down to the bank carrying her own laundry tub. She stood over Uzo, a wicked smirk playing on her lips, watching him work like a servant in his own kingdom. "Our husband!" Chidima called out, her voice loud enough for the whole river to hear. "The husband of the whole world! Look at how you handle women's clothes with soft hands. A man like you deserves a reward." All the women at the river erupted in laughter, clapping their hands and shouting, "Our husband! Our husband!" Uzo just looked up, wiped the soap from his cheek with his bare shoulder, and smiled humbly. He thought they were praising him. He thought they saw the deep, sacred love he had for his wife. He didn't see the dark, cruel eyes of Chidima watching him. He didn't see his own wife Adanna standing a few feet away under the bamboo tree, whispering with Chidima, pointing at him and laughing like he was a foolish animal trapped in a cage. And it didn't end there. On the way home, when Adanna complained that the gravel was hurting her slippers, Uzo wrapped a thick woven cloth around his chest and backed his wife on his spine like a mother carrying a newborn baby. He carried her full weight across 3 villages while her best friend Chidima walked beside them, clapping her hands and chanting for the whole world to hear. "Our husband, the husband of the whole world." If you thought Uzo's love had reached its limit, then you haven't seen a man completely blinded by his own heart. It was a cold, windy Saturday night. Adanna and Chidima were inside the small parlor, glued to the television, watching the season finale of a high drama movie. Just as the biggest scene was about to play, shh, the TV screen turned completely into blue noise and slow. Adanna hissed loudly, throwing her hands in the air. "Now, wow, look at this rubbish TV. Uzo, come here right now." Uzo came running from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a hand towel. "My queen, what happened?" "The signal is gone," Adanna snapped, pointing aggressively at the flickering box. "Chidima and I are watching an important part. Go outside and fix that antenna before I lose my mind." Outside, the sky was pitch black and heavy raindrops were already starting to fall. The wind was whipping through the coconut trees, making the old wooden ladder outside wobble against the rusted zinc roof. Uzo climbed up that slippery ladder in the dark, holding a small flashlight between his teeth. Up on the high roof, exposed to the biting cold wind, he grabbed the long aluminium antenna pole. He turned it left, nothing. He turned it right, nothing. He shouted down through the high window, "My queen, is it showing now?" Adanna shouted back from inside the warm parlor without even looking out, "No, hold it sideways and tilt it up. Shake it. Keep shaking it." Uzo tilted the metal pole with his bare, freezing hands. Up inside the room, the picture suddenly cleared up. "Yes, it's clear. Don't move," Chidima yelled, laughing as she took another bite of her corn. Uzo sighed with relief, preparing to climb down. But as soon as his hand shifted just an inch, the static returned, and Adanna screamed up at the ceiling, "Uzo, what are you doing? Hold it steady. If you move again and ruin this movie, don't bother coming inside tonight." So, Uzo stayed. For 2 straight hours, while the rain began to pour down in heavy sheets, Uzo stood high on top of that slippery zinc roof in the cold, dark night. The wind slammed against his body, his teeth chattered violently, and his hands went completely numb from gripping the wet metal pole. Below him, through the window, he could hear Adanna and Chidima laughing heartily, cozy in the warm room,
right?
eating and enjoying the film.
He's not gonna make
He
it.
held that
Oh
pole
my gosh.
like a human lightning
This is the
rod,
best part.
shaking it
More snacks,
slightly
please.
whenever the signal flickered, just so his wife wouldn't miss a single second of her entertainment. By the time the movie ended and the TV credits rolled, it was past midnight. Uzo's body was trembling uncontrollably from severe hypothermia. His fingers were so stiff they had locked onto the metal pole. When he finally tried to step onto the wet wooden ladder to climb down, his leg went numb. His foot slipped off the top rung, Uzo losing his footing, slipping off the edge of the roof and crashing heavily onto the muddy ground below with a loud thud, scattering dry leaves and mud. Crash! Uzo hit the muddy earth hard, gasping for air as pain exploded through his ribs. Did Adanna rush outside with tears in her eyes to help her husband? Did she hold him and check if he was breathing? No. The parlor door opened just a crack. Adanna poked her head out, looked at Uzo groaning in the mud, and scoffed. Look at these big elephants dropping like a sack of gari. She hissed to Chidima, who was standing behind her giggling. Make sure you turn off the main switch before you crawl inside, Uzo. Don't bring wet mud into my clean parlor. She sunk the door and locked it from the inside. There Uzo lay in the freezing rain, coughing up mud, looking at the warm light under the door. For the very time in his life, as a cold tear mixed with the falling rain on his cheek, a tiny seed of doubt planted itself in his aching chest. He had given her his strength, his dignity, and his body. But to Adanna, he was nothing more than a piece of iron holding up her signal. If you think being treated like a human chair or standing in the freezing rain on a zinc roof was the worst thing that happened to Uzo, then you do not know how deep the dark well of human wickedness can go. Because what Adanna and her best friend Chidima were planning next was not just cruelty, it was evil. You see, a bad person will take your kindness and use it, but a truly wicked person will look at your pure, innocent love and use it as a weapon to destroy your very soul. Adanna had looked into Uzo's eyes and realized something terrible. Uzo's love for her was so complete, so total, that he would gladly die if he thought it would save her life. And instead of treasuring a heart like that, Adanna and Chidima decided to squeeze every last drop of blood out of it before throwing him away like garbage. Started on a Tuesday morning, a morning that Uzo would remember for the rest of his days. Uzo had just returned from the forest, carrying a small bundle of dry firewood on his bruised shoulders. As he approached the compound, a piercing scream shattered the quiet morning air. It was Adanna. Uzo dropped the firewood instantly and burst through the front door, his heart leaping into his throat. What he saw made his legs turn into water. Adanna was writhing on the wooden bed, clutching her stomach, rolling from side to side with sweat pouring down her face. She was groaning like someone whose body was being torn apart from the inside. Beside the bed stood Chidima, wiping her eyes with her wrapper, fanning Adanna with a frantic hand. Uzo! Oh God, Uzo, thank goodness you are back, Chidima shrieked, grabbing his arm as he rushed to the bedside. It happened an hour ago. A sudden evil sickness has gripped her stomach. She cannot eat, she cannot sit, she cannot breathe. Uzo fell straight to his knees beside the bed. His hands were trembling as he cupped Adanna's face, his eyes instantly brimming with hot, terrified tears. My queen, look at me. Uzo wept, his voice cracking with pure fear. What is hurting you? Tell me, please, what do I do? Adanna let out a weak, agonizing groan, shutting her eyes tightly and turning her head away as if she was too weak to even speak. Chidima stepped closer, lowering her voice into a solemn, heavy whisper. The local herbalist was just here, Uzo. Chidima lied, her voice dripping with fake tragedy. He checked her blood. He said it is a rare, ancient belly fever. He said if she does not get the costly imported medicine from the city clinic within 7 days, her heart will stop. She will leave this world. Uzo felt like the entire room was spinning upside down. His chest tightened so hard he couldn't catch his breath. How much? Uzo choked out. tears raining down his cheeks onto the bedsheets. "How much is the medicine? Tell me, I will pay anything." Chidima leaned down, looking right into Uzo's desperate eyes. 200,000 naira, Uzo, cash, before 7 days. 200,000 naira to a simple village man who barely made a few hundred naira a day selling firewood. That amount was like asking for the moon from the sky. Uzo had no savings left. Every single kobo he had ever earned in his life had gone into buying Adanna's expensive lace clothes, her gold-colored jewelry, her imported soaps, and the finest food in the market. He was completely broke. He looked down at Adanna, who let out another dramatic shuddering gasp for air, pretending to slip out of consciousness. At that moment, Uzo did not hesitate. He did not ask questions. He did not think about his own future. He wiped the tears from his face, stood up on shaking legs, and looked at the sky. "She will not die," Uzo whispered, his voice shaking with fierce determination. "I swear on my ancestors, my wife will live." Uzo possessed only one thing of value in this entire world: a small fertile plot of land at the edge of the village. It was the land his late father had bled and worked for. It was his birthright, his father's final gift before passing away into the ancestral realm. It was all Uzo had to build a future. Without a second thought, Uzo ran like a madman to the house of the village land buyer. He fell on his knees in front of the man and begged him to buy the land immediately for half of its real value, just so he could get the cash that very afternoon. When the land buyer handed over the envelope of money, Uzo took it with hands that were shaking violently. He had just sold his birthright, but in his mind, saving his wife's life was worth more than 1,000 plots of land. But the money from the land was not enough. It was still short. Desperate, with time ticking away, Uzo walked into the local city blood bank clinic. He rolled up his sleeve and looked the nurse in the eyes. "Take my blood," Uzo said softly. "Take as much as you need. Just give me the money for my wife's medicine." For 6 straight days, Uzo gave everything. He sold his father's memory. He sold his own blood until his skin turned pale grey, and he worked double shifts in the palm oil pits, carrying heavy boiling iron drums until the skin on his shoulders peeled off and bled into his shirt. And every single night, while his own body was starving and exhausted beyond human limits, Uzo did not sleep. He sat by Adanna's bed for 7 nights straight. He held a palm leaf fan, gently fanning her body through the hot nights so she wouldn't sweat. He used a wet cloth to wipe her forehead. He wept silently in the dark, bowing his head against the wooden mattress, whispering prayers to God. "Take my health, take my strength, take my life if you must, but please spare my queen." He was pouring out his very life force for her, unaware that under her blanket, Adanna was lying awake, silently laughing at his foolishness. On the morning of the 8th day, the ordeal was finally over. Uzo had handed over the last coin to Chidima for the fake city herbalist. In his mind, his sacrifice had worked. Adanna was going to survive. Uzo walked back to his compound on legs that felt like hollow sticks. He was dangerously weak, his eyes sunken into his skull, his hands raw and covered in dried blood from the palm oil drums. He looked like a ghost of a man. As he walked down the narrow dirt path near his house, his tired eyes caught a small, vibrant yellow wildflower blooming proudly in the mud. Despite his intense physical pain, a soft, sweet smile touched Uzo's cracked, dry lips. He bent down with great effort, his back aching, and carefully plucked the flower. She loves beautiful things, Uzo whispered to himself, holding the small flower gently between his calloused, dirty fingers. She is alive. That is all that matters. Holding that tiny flower like a treasure, Uzo limped up to the wooden front door of his house. He wanted to surprise her. He wanted to see her smile. But as his hand reached out to push the door open, voices from inside made him stop dead in his tracks. It was the sound of crisp paper money being counted, followed by loud, hysterical laughter. "Chidima, look at it!" Adanna's voice rang out, loud, strong, clear, and full of life. There was no fever, no weakness, no illness. "I cannot believe it!" Chidima shrieked with laughter inside. 200,000 naira. He actually sold his father's land. He actually gave his own blood. That fool really believed I brought a herbalist. Outside the door, Uzo's hand froze in midair. The smile on his face dissolved into a look of sheer, terrifying confusion. "I told you his love was a disease," Adanna's voice mocked, accompanied by the sound of high-end Ankara fabrics being folded into heavy metal suitcases. "Look at all this gold jewelry we bought from the city merchants. Look at these lace materials. We have enough money now to move to the capital and live like big ladies." "Are you not going to miss him even a little bit, Adanna?" Chidima asked, giggling. "He almost died fanning you for 7 nights. Adanna scoffed so loudly, so bitterly, that the sound pierced straight through the wooden door and slammed into Uzo's chest like a silver blade. "Miss him?" Adanna sneered with pure, unfiltered disgust. "Miss that birthless opinion? He is not a man, Chidima. He is an animal, a pathetic houseboy. I only kept him around so I wouldn't have to lift a finger in this village. Looking at his dirty face makes me want to vomit. Today, we leave this wretched hut forever, and he can rot in his own poverty." The ground beneath Uzo's feet seemed to open up and swallow him whole. The air left his lungs. The sky above him turned pitch black, even though the sun was shining brightly. The blood in his veins ran completely ice cold. Every word Adanna spoke echoed inside his head like thunder, shattering every piece of his heart into dust. Before he could even process the horror, the front door swung wide open. Adanna and Chidima stepped out onto the porch, dressed in dazzling, expensive golden Ankara wrappers, wearing heavy gold necklaces bought with his father's land money. They looked like royalty, while Uzo stood before them looking like a beggar. When Adanna's eyes met Uzo's pale, heartbroken face, she did not flinch. She did not feel a single drop of guilt or remorse. Instead, her face twisted into a cold, angry sneer. "So you were standing outside listening, you useless fool?" Adanna barked, stepping down from the porch. Uzo looked at her, his voice nothing more than a broken whisper. "Adanna, the sickness, the land, my blood, it was all a lie?" "Yes, it was a lie," Adanna shrieked, reaching into the house, grabbing Uzo's few remaining old shirts and throwing them violently into the dirty mud at his feet. "I used you, Uzo, because you are foolish. Look at you, smelling like palm oil, sweat and dirt. You are a disgrace to manhood." Chidima stepped out behind her, carrying their suitcases, laughing maliciously as she looked down her nose at him. Uzo's knees finally gave out. The sheer weight of the betrayal was too much for a human body to bear. He collapsed heavily into the red mud, his hands sinking into the dirt. Tears, thick, scalding, uncontrollable tears poured from his eyes, washing streaks through the dust on his face. Even then, in his utter devastation, Uzo's trembling hand reached out, trying to offer her the tiny yellow wildflower he had picked for her. I loved you, Adanna, Uzo sobbed, his chest heaving with desperate, ragged breaths. I gave you everything. I gave you my blood. Adanna looked down at the flower in his hand. She didn't hesitate. She took a step forward, raised her heavy leather sandal and brought it down right on Uzo's hand, grinding the delicate yellow flower directly into the wet dirt under her heel, crushing it until it was nothing more than smeared green pulp. Your love is worthless, Uzo, Adanna spat, stepping over his weeping body as if he were nothing more than a dead dog in the streets. Don't you ever look for me again. Chidinma kicked his old clothes deeper into the mud as she followed behind. The two women walked down the village path, laughing loudly, hailing a waiting taxi and driving away toward the big city with his father's money, his blood, and his pride. Left alone in the empty compound, Uzo curled up in the red mud. He clutched his crushed hand to his chest and wept, a deep, agonizing, soul-shattering cry that echoed through the quiet trees of the village. He had lost his land. He had lost his blood. He had lost his dignity. The man who had been called our husband was now left with nothing but dirt, rain, and a broken spirit. Unaware that in the darkest depths of a man's heartbreak, a new fire is born. They say when a man weeps until he has no more tears left to shed, his heart does not dry up, it turns into iron. As the heavy rain washed the red mud from Uzo's face, something inside him changed forever. The soft, gentle eyes that used to look at Adanna with helpless devotion grew quiet. The pain was still there, but the weeping was over. Uzo looked down at his calloused, bleeding hands. He looked at the mud on his clothes, and right there, standing alone under the heavy skies, a quiet truth hit his soul like a bolt of thunder. If a man could give up his land, his strength, and his very blood for a lie, imagine what that same man could build if he gave that energy to his own destiny. What Adanna and Chidinma did not know was that Uzo was never truly lost. Months before the betrayal, a wealthy merchant from the city had passed through the village square. That merchant had seen Uzo kneeling in the hot dust to let Adanna sit on his back. He had seen Uzo carrying her across 3 villages on his spine without a single complaint. While the villagers laughed, that rich merchant saw something rare. An honest man with unmatched strength, patience, and absolute loyalty. The merchant had secretly approached Uzo days before the betrayal, offering him a position to manage his massive timber and cocoa export business in the city. Uzo had initially hesitated because of Adanna, but now there was nothing holding him back. Uzo packed his small bag, wiped the mud off his shoes, and walked out of the village without looking back once. He walked day and night. The same hands that used to wash lace wrappers in the river were now signing massive contracts. The same back that carried a foolish woman now carried the weight of a multi-million naira business empire. Long months passed by. The city had not been sweet to Adanna and Chidinma. The fake city big men they ran away with turned out to be dangerous scammers. In less than 3 months, those wicked men took all of Uzo's land money, took all the gold jewelry, and threw both women out into the cold streets with nothing. Broke, hungry, and covered in shame, Adanna and Chidinma had no choice but to walk back to the village on foot. As they stepped into the village square, their eyes almost popped out of their heads. Right in the middle of the community, where old mud huts used to stand, was a huge, beautiful mansion. It had tall black gates, shining gold pillars, and high glass windows. Adanna's eyes filled with greed all over again. "Chidinma, look," Adanna whispered, wiping her dirty face with her sleeve. "A rich chief from the city must have built this palace. Come, let us go inside and beg him. A fine woman like me can easily sweet-talk a rich man to take care of us." They pushed their way through the massive black gates, stepping onto the clean paved ground. A large crowd of village elders and neighbors was already standing there, whispering in shock. Suddenly, the heavy wooden doors of the palace swung open. Adanna gasped. Her plastic bag dropped into the dirt. Chidinma covered her mouth, stumbling backward in pure horror. It was Uzo. He did not look like the hungry, mud-covered man they threw into the rain. He stood like a king, radiating wealth, honor, and authority. Adanna's head spun with instant regret. Seeing the grand mansion and the luxury cars around him, she threw herself straight onto her knees in the red dirt, crawling toward the steps with tears running down her dusty cheeks. "Uzo, my husband," Adanna cried, her voice shaking as she reached out to grab his shiny black shoes. "Look at me. Look at your queen. I was confused. Those city men deceived me. Please forgive me. Carry me on your back again. Be our husband again." The entire village square went completely silent. You could hear a dry leaf drop. Everyone looked at Adanna crying in the dirt and then looked up at Uzo standing on the top step. Uzo looked down at her. His eyes were not angry. He was not shouting. His face was just calm, cold, and peaceful. He gently took one step backward, letting her hands fall flat into the hard dust instead of touching his shoes. He looked down at her with pure dignity. I humbled myself and knelt in the mud because I thought I was lifting up an angel. I did not know I was carrying a snake. Get up off the ground, Adanna, because this man will never be your footstool again. Uzo turned around, walked back inside his palace, and the heavy golden doors shut tight behind him, leaving Adanna and Chidinma sobbing in the dust while the entire village erupted in cheers for the man who reclaimed his life. To every woman watching this story, let Adanna's mistake be your warning. Never confuse a good man's humility for weakness. The same hand that kneels to lift you up today can shut the gate on you forever tomorrow.